Good evening. Welcome to the November 26th Speedway Redevelopment Commission meeting. And this is Monday. My name is Tom Popchef. I'm the president of the commission. And I'd like to introduce the rest of the commission members and staff. To my immediate left is Brody Duncan, commission member. To his left is Rhonda Schwartz, secretary of the commission. And to her left is Dr. Terry Reed, representing the Speedway School Corporation. To my right is Tim Gropp. Tim is the executive director of our stellar economic development department here in the town of Speedway. And in our audience, we have Tim Ramian, executive assistant. And then we also have representatives from the Veritas Group, Tim Jensen and Mark Griffith, who will be making some comments a little bit later on in our meeting. So let's go ahead and get the meeting started. We'll call it to order, and I have confirmed that we do have a quorum so that we can conduct business, and proper notifications have been given for our meeting according to Indiana state law. So the first order of business is public commentary. Notice we do have a member of the public present, and if you would like to make any comments, please feel free to come to the lectern.
Sure, just want to say hi. I'm going to be your new neighbor. I recently purchased the house next to PNC on Crawfordsville Road, and this is my first Speedway Redevelopment Commission meeting, so just wanted to come check you guys out.
Oh, that's great. Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name's Austin Templin.
Hey, Austin. Welcome. Welcome to Speedway.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Austin.
Yep, good to meet you.
Yeah, I think we
Thank
talked
you.
on the phone actually one time.
Oh, that's great. Great. Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate that, along with the throngs of other people that show up for our meetings. The next item of business that we have, unless there are more public comments, is the consent for our meeting minutes, the regular session of October 22nd, 2018. Such meetings have been distributed earlier, and opportunities for any edits or comments were provided to staff. So unless I hear any further suggested edits or revisions, we'll go ahead and accept those by consent. So thank you very much. Now we have the next item on our agenda is the approval of claims, and we do have a rather large expenditure, and our Economic Development Director, Tim, will explain that, as well as just giving us a good overview of the claims that we'll consider for approval this evening.
Yeah, I have several notes just so the commission knows what's going on here. Good news is one of the two Citizen Energy Group bills, that should be our last one. That was one of those will be disconnected as per the demo on 1300 block. You had mentioned the larger claim. There's one from Crow Horwath LLP for $66,064.15. That is in regards to the Wilshaw project. So it was fully intended we'd have a bond issued at this time and be moving forward with everything. That has dragged out now. Crow's been working on this over 2 years now, so they've tallied up a pretty hefty bill, and it's getting close to the end of the year, and they asked if they could go. The intent was always cost of issuance would come out, we'd close the bond, they'd get paid through that way. They came to us and said, look, this is taking way longer than we ever anticipated. Could we settle up to this point? And, as we looked at where we're at, we hopefully are close to the finish line, but we need to go ahead and settle with them. And then we'll just put that on our cost issuance when we get reimbursed. So all our legal fees, now this is adding up to a pretty hefty amount as this thing drags on to closing of the bond. So we're even with them. They'll have an additional expense moving forward. Their major money will be when we actually do the closing and market and everything. So they'll still have some additional fees, but we're going to head and settle up with them, but we should get reimbursed at the closing. A couple others I wanted to point out. There's 3 on here that say settlement agreement. There's E&B Paving, Fidelity Deposit Company, Hopus Pipe USA. Those are all related to the bond that was out on the B&O Trail through Main Street. When we did the 72-inch sewer pipe relocation, those were all subcontractors that never got paid from the contractor. There was a court settlement. We had set aside some of our bond waiting on that settlement. There was a surety bond, and so we were able to settle on that. And so what they did is we closed out that bond, put that money into our account, and then paid off the settlement as per the court order. There's an additional approximately $34,000, and that's in our account now. So this didn't really cost us anything. We anticipated it, but now we're totally closed out of that bond for that 72-inch sewer, and everybody's been reimbursed. So we actually came out a little bit ahead there. I do want to say thank you to the town manager who handled a lot of those legal bills as that was going on with Hopus Pipe. So beyond that, again, there's 3 IPL bills. I just wanted to point that out. We'll get a refund. What happened there was there was an IPL bill, and then we closed out for the 1300 demo. So they did a final bill, but they saw there was an account balance open, so they just added it to the final closeout bill. So we went ahead and, not knowing that, they went ahead and paid both of them. And so we contacted them, and they'll reimburse us that difference then. But then we'll be down to just the single IPL bill as well. And let's see, I think that's it. We had one new legal bill from Taylor Chad Minette, that is Bob Clutter. We don't normally see those on here, but he had done the 2500 High School Road EDA, which was outside the scope of his normal legal work for the town. So that is what that bill is associated with. And it's still the most reasonable legal bill we have on here.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Does anybody have any further questions of Tim regarding any of the claims for consideration? Well, hearing no further questions, and thank you for that explanation. I'll entertain a motion to accept the claims that have been presented.
Motion to approve the claims as presented.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? Well, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the claims as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 3-0. Oh, I've also failed to mention that Gordon Rundle, unfortunately, is ill this evening and was unable to attend, but I fully expect him to be back up and running and at our next regular commission meeting. So thank you, Tim. All right, next we will move on to our project updates. And we have the first major project update that we would like to hear from the Veritas Group, Mark Griffith, who has been following that project very closely on our behalf. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, and good evening. So just wanted to give an update on the Wilshaw Apartments. That north structure we're really seeing coming around the corner towards the finish line with the construction of that project. The interior finishes are wrapping up. We're starting to see finishes in the corridors, so the corridors are seeing paint, light fixtures, flooring. Elevator is just about complete. I think they have their inspection scheduled and the testing and inspection scheduled for that second week in December. So we should see that go into operation. That helps line up what they need for their certificate of occupancy for that structure. We're also seeing the stairwells getting wrapped up with their finishes. The parking lot, the binder went down this last week just before the holidays, so that's nice to see. It's really cleaning up the project. They're intending on trying to get the top coat down yet this year, obviously weather permitting at this point in time. So it'll be interesting to see if we're able to get that accomplished. Also seeing appliances in the north structure and starting to see some of the framing occur in the retail spaces, and so some of those finishes are starting to come in the amenity in retail space in the north structure. South structure is a little bit further behind, but we are seeing flooring going in, finished paint going in, plumbing fixtures, electrical fixtures, stuff like that. So they've made quite a bit of progress in that south structure and making up the schedule that they kind of lost at the beginning of the year due to weather delays and some material delivery issues. So a lot of progress in that south structure. On the exterior, you are seeing that the masonry is a bit behind schedule. Obviously, they're dealing with weather through that process as well. Masonry on the north structure is complete, short of a couple of lintels here and there. Seeing siding go on both structures and that should be wrapped up. I think it's the second week in December as well, weather permitting. So that's kind of the update for the apartment project. I don't have much to update on the Wilshaw Hotel. However, they have installed geopiers for that structure, and we intend on seeing some information from Loftus Robinson and their construction team as far as pricing here in the near future.
We did just receive updated landscape plans as well. And a lot of the things that we kind of asked for in the pre-con meeting are incorporated now, mostly to do with safely getting pedestrians from the parking lot to Main Street. So adding a sidewalk between the two buildings where the drive is, and then also adding a better sidewalk and some patio space on the south side of the building. So if you're on that side of the parking lot, you can walk around safely. Which I thought, I don't stare at landscape plans all day, but I thought what I saw looked pretty nice. So I liked the changes that they made. So.
Great. Any questions?
No, I do want to mention that the apartment website is up and active, and they do have floor plans of the units. Also have the pricing structures for the occupancy of the 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. It's impressive. I like the various layouts, and they're comparable to downtown apartment pricing. So, they're promoting them as luxury apartments, and I believe the finished product is going to meet that expectation.
Yeah. That website is wilshawapartments.com. I don't know where they came up with that, but
I don't know, but it's rather creative.
yeah.
So if you've not actually gone to the website, I'd encourage you to do so.
Yeah.
It's a rather impressive display.
I know they've done some pre-leasing already, and we've seen they're been active in the community going around promoting as well.
I did request if there was any leasing information at this point in time and have not heard back.
Okay,
See if they have anything pre-leased.
great. Well, as soon as you get more information from them, please
Oh,
pass that
absolutely.
on to us. And thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions for Mark?
Not at this time.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Mark.
Just a quick update on the hotel side. We have been in contact with them. We're having weekly conversations with Drew Loftus Robinson. Obviously, the Thanksgiving vacation delays everything, but they're still anticipating going to closing next week. We'll keep you posted. If that does take place, which we hope it does, then we have 3 more approvals that need to happen, one with the SRC, one with the building corp on the parking agreement, and then a final approval with the town council as well. So we can get those done pretty quick, and then we'd shoot for a closing of the bond in mid to late January, which is a pretty good time to close on bonds. It's a little slower. So we'll let you know. We're not holding our breath or anything, but feels like there's some momentum. We have been able to see some documentation from their bank on the loan, and well, hopefully they'll get closed next week.
Well, that's encouraging. Any further questions? Tim? Great. Well, let's move on to the 2500 North High School Road update. We have finalized our economic development agreement with the developer, and we're very pleased with the progress and that final agreement. What I'd like to do is ask Tim to give us a little bit more of an update on the status and the progress for that major development at Crawfordsville Road and 2500 North High School.
Yeah, so the economic development agreement being signed was just the first step. All the additional documents that really make the project move forward are being drafted currently, which include the purchase agreement, the declaration of covenants and restrictions, and the funding agreement. Their team is taking the first draft stab at those. I believe they're working with Jennifer Messer on all those documents. I worked with her a lot in the past. She does a nice job. So we'll have drafts back to us to review. The EDA contemplated that we'd have those ready for approval within 45 days, but I think both sides understand if there's a slight delay on that, we'll come back and ask for an extension. But as per the EDA, it's supposed to be within the next 45 days. So hopefully we'll have some first drafts to get circulated sooner than later. Beyond that, they have had conversations with Circle K, and those conversations went very well. They've sat down with El Rodeo to talk about their plans and what they'd like to see, and they have had conversations with the cell tower owners as well. So we have a meeting this week. If you may recall, there was an environmental spill at that corner. It's not on our property. It's actually an NDOT right-of-way. They had been using our property for just staging and some testing. There was a large delay in that, and they're coming back, so we're going to have them at the table now. The developer will be at the table with us, but our anticipation is to, enough time has gone by, you're going to need to find a solution that's not on the property. We're moving forward with redevelopment, so we'll have that conversation this week. I think that's on Thursday. But from every indication, we haven't locked in any users or anything, but engineering's underway, and we're looking at financing options. And a quick little update on the Economic Development Administration grant. Due to the uses we're looking at on there, it is not eligible for those grant dollars. That grant is focused more on industrial manufacturing type job creation. So we did finally have a conversation with the Economic Development Administration. It was a good conversation. I think there's some other projects that might be useful for her down the road. So it was a useful conversation, but not for this particular project. So we'll be focusing more on alternative financing, TIF, things like that.
Good. Anybody have any further questions of Tim regarding 2500 North High School?
Nope.
No?
All right.
Yeah, excellent overview. Appreciate that. The next project update we have is our 1300 block of North Main Street, making some really good progress there. We do have construction scheduled to commence sometime this week. Permit has already been submitted. Tim, I'd like to ask you to fill us in a little bit more in detail.
Sure. We have a few photos for you up here. The last couple of weeks, we've allowed us and the developer that owns Ted's Beauty Shop have allowed the fire department to do some training. All 3 shifts have taken advantage of that, and today in particular, because we are so close to the demo date, we allowed them to get a little more aggressive with the buildings. It was fun to watch a little bit of it, but they did some second floor rescues. They did some basement rescue. They really enjoyed the Ted's Beauty Shop building because it gave them an opportunity they don't normally get with a basement and that second floor. They used some of their equipment on the storage building as well, knocking that door out. So we're anxious to get these buildings down as quickly as possible now. They did a couple also venting on the roofs and everything. So it was useful to public safety, and we're glad they were able to use it. And I think they enjoyed the training. Beyond that, kind of a timeline back where we're at, I think if you all recall, we had an agreement with the developer, a backstop agreement, memorandum of agreement that said, hey, we're going to try and get a deal done in this site. If we don't, we'll buy the property back from you and figure out what we're going to do in the future. Since that time, we engaged Access Development to kind of do a first step that said, hey, this is what'll fit on here. What can we even do on this? This is 1 acre. Basically, if you took the whole property, we're not doing anything with the clock shop. So we have a few of those renderings, I think, up here that kind of show we hadn't really shown these, but the first step was, what can we do? These are concepts. These aren't necessarily exactly what's going to go on the site, but we wanted to know what would fit, what would park itself, which is one of our biggest requirements, what fits into the block and the design of what we were looking at. So what you see is a couple concepts that are two phases, 2 buildings. I don't remember the exact square footage. I want to say like 33,000 total. It can be done in phase 1 and phase 2. We've added a little pocket park in the middle, and you'll see a site plan here that kind of shows all the parking is in the rear. There you go. So you see the buildings up front, parking in the rear, a little bit of public space, kind of reconfiguring the parking around Main Street and the side. So what this got us was, this is a feasible project that will fit on the parcel, that looks really nice, that'll fit into the to the, what we're trying to do on Main Street. So then we RFP'd out and did not get any responses, and we've kind of been in a 30-day waiting period. I know that talking to Shelby at Rebar, he's anxious to kind of go out there and see what kind of interest is there. We've been collecting names, talking to a few interested parties that might want to be tenants in there. And before any kind of proposal comes forward, he'd like to see if there's some pre-leasing that could be done or some more significant interest before we start spending a lot of money on the development side. So you might see some marketing out there. You might even see, I don't know what channel he's going to do, but he had requested that he was able to use the renderings that we put together and kind of go out there and market the project a little bit. So there's no deal in place right now. We haven't moved that step yet, but we're taking some baby steps to go out there and make sure this project's feasible before we sit back at the table.
You know what I like about the initial design concepts, it complies with, the designs of our newer facilities, and I think it meets the intent of what we hope to accomplish on Main Street. Unfortunately, we do have to demolish buildings, but neither one of those structures have any historical significance. They certainly would require a tremendous amount of resources and funds to rebuild or renovate for further use. So feasibly, it was the best approach to take a look at that entire block. Mm-hmm. And the design is very appealing. I think the potential mix of prospective tenants is going to bring, some more opportunities for the citizens, as well as hopefully bring, more businesses to Main Street and more relatively high-paying positions is what our hope is. One of the things that I know that we have asked the potential developer is that we have the opportunity to take a look at the marketing materials before they release anything, and we've got a good working relationship with them, so I suspect that they'll comply with our request. Not that they're required to, but it would be nice to see what they hope to get out, to the public and attract potential.
We still own a majority of the land in that block. So
Yes, we do. So we've got a little bit of
they own
control.
some key parcels, but it definitely, anything at this point really needs to be a joint effort until any kind of agreement gets into place. So, we've been working with Bell Racing on the concept for their new space, and we're just trying to get that pricing in place before we can see what kind of rents we'd have to demand to be able to get this project moving forward.
I do also want to mention that staff has contacted the local businesses adjacent to that area, and particularly those that whose employees have been using the employee parking area, and alternate arrangements have been made for them. So I think we're going to be very comfortably able to take care of their employee parking requirements during the term of that demolition. And that could take, 2-3 weeks?
Yep,
potentially?
right about that time frame.
Okay, should be good.
All right.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Great. Well, thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. The next item, this is going to be a very brief update, is the project RPM negotiations for potential acquisition of property. Tim?
I think we're close. No, I think we've done some environmental testing. You told me to be quick. We've done some environmental testing that was needed. The property we're looking at, we found through history, was a gas station for about 8 years, of course. But we went ahead and did some phase 2 testing, and it actually, the environmental testing group, Wilcox, came back and said, this has only happened about 3 times in my career, that really there's no to little impact whatsoever on there. So there still there's some tanks that were found. Those will need to get pulled, but I think we'll get close to an agreement. We still have to do a survey, and I think we can wrap this thing up here towards the end of the year.
Right.
So we'll get the final details put together, and we'll bring it back hopefully at the December 17th meeting.
Great. Any further questions, Tim? All right. The next agenda item is a new resolution, and this involves a final settlement agreement with Praxair Surface Technologies affecting property on the south edge of their property, of which a portion is owned by the Redevelopment Commission in the town of Speedway. And I know this negotiation has been going on for quite some time, at least 2 to 3 years, if not a little bit longer. And fortunately, we've reached an agreement. And this resolution is our approval for that settlement agreement, which has previously been distributed to the commission. Hope you've had an opportunity to review that thoroughly. Tim, do you have any other further comments regarding the settlement agreement? Give us a good overview.
Yeah, a couple notes on this. So, as you mentioned, this has been going on for quite some time. This all started back when Allison was celebrating their 100th
100th
anniversary. And they were doing some improvements along 10th Street, and one thing that the redevelopment commission at the time was trying to do was straighten out Polk Street there. And they purchased, I believe we have a map up here. We had purchased a little chunk of land from Praxair on that corner, and unfortunately indemnified them from the construction portion. You can kind of see it off to the right there. This map's a little hard to see, but we own a little chunk where you would straighten the road out there. We call it Parcel 5. Unfortunately, when they started the project, pushed a little dirt around, found some contamination in the area, discovered there was quite a bit. The project immediately got stopped, and obviously that project has never moved forward. We're unfortunately stuck with this little parcel, which is a chunk of a bigger area that has problems. So that, I guess in a good way, triggered IDEM notification that there's a problem here that needs to be corrected. Unfortunately, the town was now involved in some of those cleanup efforts. So since I've come on board, and a little bit before that, we've been negotiating with Praxair to figure out how we're going to close this property and clean up that site. I know it's been an eyesore for quite a while. We're hoping that we could maybe get it a little bit to developable standards, but unfortunately just the cost of the cleanup is going to be significantly higher. So we feel overall this time we finally come to an agreement that makes sense for everybody. It's probably a best case scenario for the town as far as financial impact. We have identified a funding source that the town has that was back before insurance companies would do any kind of environmental cleanup. Towns were putting away some money for those kind of situations. So the money's in place, the town council's aware of it, and we're going to be able, the agreement we basically put together is the overall surveyed area, we own about 19.2% of it. So that kind of came down based on the estimates that were put together, about $200,000. One thing we were very particular on the town side was we wanted to look nice. We understand it can't be developed, but all the brush will be cleared out. It'll be knocked down as a hill, and then some kind of grass on there, and then it'll be fenced in. We want to make sure that fence is very nice, and that it's taken care of as best as possible. So our final agreement came down to we're basically putting in $100,000 of the cost, plus the cost of the fencing, so that way we can dictate what it looks like and make it look as nice as possible in that area. The other positive that will come out of this is we do own all the right-of-way in front of it that would be the extension of the B&O trail in that chunk. So we're looking at funding sources for that. So we'd be able to clean up this mess that's there, make it a nice mobile hill, have a nice fence around it, and eventually have the trail go by it. So, it's a long time coming. It's an unfortunate situation that we have in our town, but it's finally come to a conclusion. We're happy about that. One note to the agreement that you have. So the resolution will approve authorizing Tom to sign the agreement with Praxair. I did not send all the exhibits because they're really big. It's like a 16 meg file because they have all the studies and recommendations to IDEM and everything. But it also has the fencing specs and everything that we're required to do. So I have a copy of some of it. I didn't even print it all out. It was 300 pages. So, but we do have that, and it is in line with what's in the settlement agreement.
And council have reviewed the documents, find it acceptable. The town and SRC will be fully indemnified from any future claims as a result of this settlement agreement.
Yes, this will indemnify us from any future claims on us. So this is a one-time expense for us, which is, again, probably the best-case scenario here. We will still own that one chunk of land, but a lot of our percentage was actually construction easement.
Mhm.
It wasn't actually the land that we owned. It was land that they own.
So, and Praxair will be responsible for maintaining that area
Correct.
post-containment after that work is done.
Correct.
Any questions regarding the settlement agreement or the proposed resolution? Well, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept resolution number 2018-08.
Yes, I move that we accept Resolution 2018-08 for the approval of the settlement agreement with Praxair Technologies, Surface Technologies, and authorizing the SRC president to sign the agreement.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, let's go ahead and take it to a vote. All those in favor of accepting resolution number 2018-08, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, commission members. All right, don't believe we have any new business to discuss, at least none on our agenda, so that brings us to the agenda item of our old business. And the first item of old business is an amendment to the Economic Development Plan scope of services. And if you'll recall, in our prior meetings, we had talked about a grant that we have received in the amount of $40,000 to assist the town in updating our strategic development plan and economic development plan. The Veritas Group has been selected based on a formal request for information some time ago to provide those services to the town. And there was a preliminary scope of services that were identified in that initial request for information, fully realizing that we were going to expand the scope based on further discussions with the Veritas Group and town officials. And that discussion has taken place. The expanded scope has been identified. Tim, do you have some additional information regarding the expanded scope or anything related to the timing of this initial project?
Yeah, just as you mentioned, the original scope was more in line with what the grant requirements were. We knew there'd be an additional scope, so some of the additional scope was, the original scope was going to cost more than what the grant was going to be, but also we wanted a little more data on our neighborhoods. There's a few more renderings that'll be brought together for concepts in certain areas, and I'm trying to think what else we added in there now. That's about it. So, so this just adds on to that and kind of fills out the overall scope of what we're really working on. That kickoff meeting is actually December 3rd, so we're excited to get this started.
Oh, that's great. And we have town representatives that will be participating as the initial planning group, so I'm very anxious to get that process started.
Yeah, there's a kind of a guiding group that's about 7 of us, but there will be plenty of opportunities for public input and different groups to be able to come together and kind of give their viewpoint on different aspects as well.
And if you'll recall, when we entertained our operating budget, there were funds that were allocated for the additional scope as it was going to be defined. We've exceeded that just slightly by a very nominal amount, and the additional scope will result in an additional expenditure of $26,500. So anybody have any questions of Tim or either the Veritas Group representatives who are here this evening? Nope. Well, I assume we need a motion for the expenditure?
Yeah.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for the additional funds for the strategic plan.
Mr. President, I'd like to propose a motion to approve the amendment to the Economic Development Plan Scope of Services, the additional funding.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, let's go ahead and take that to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the additional scope for Economic Development Strategic Plan, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. And thank you, representatives from the Veritas Group. I'm really excited about working with you on this very important project. Okay, the next item that we have also involves our good friends at the Veritas Group. This is an amendment to the owner's representation scope of services that we had originally entered into with the Veritas Group to monitor the activities and to assist in bond issuance for the Wilshaw project. And based on unfortunate delays that we've experienced on the hotel component, it became very clear that we're going to have to expand that scope, and it is going to result in some additional service fees to the SRC. Now, these fees will be part of the bond issuance, or is this operating?
This is probably operating.
Operating, okay. So, Tim, I'd like to ask you to give a little explanation, or Mr. Jensen, if you'd like to make any comments.
You can go ahead, sure. You look like you want to talk. So.
I mean, you drove all this way, you might as well give us an opportunity to hear what you got to say.
So thank you, Mr. President, for having me up here tonight. This work order, or this additional piece of this work order, came out of a conversation that Mr. Grapp and I have had, and even with you, Mr. President, on multiple occasions. When we gave the original fee for the oversight of the Wilshaw project and contemplated both the hotel and the multifamily happening, maybe not exactly the same time, but close to the same time, so there's going to be a lot of duplication of those resources. And so due to the unfortunate delays that we've experienced on the hotel side, and some staff issues that the town's going to experience here over the next few months with some medical leave and other things, that we were asked to kind of expand that scope of services. And so what you can see on here is the services remain exactly the same. And actually, we haven't even spent all of what the original work order was. We're just going to take that amount, apply it to this, and then add on an additional piece. And it's still hourly not to exceed this number, so I don't know that we'll get there on this one either. We just wanted to make sure we were covered as we kind of went forward, and you guys were covered and protected in the process.
Yeah, I think it's exceptionally important to have that additional oversight.
It'll also, as we do bond draws, which hasn't happened yet, which we also contemplated would have already happened, the developer will actually send us a draw request, and it'll be a Veritas Group will take a look at it and say, this is all legitimate, or we question this, and this. Good, classic owner's rep type. And then that'll go code to us, and then we have signers that will authorize the draw to be distributed then. So there's quite a bit of work that still needs to happen. It's just very unfortunate it didn't line up the way we initially thought.
That's it.
Great. Anybody have any questions of Tim?
I know Gordon had expressed a question via email earlier today, and that was in reference to if this cost could be passed along to the developers.
Yeah, we're going to, unfortunately, this is our cost, this is our protection.
Yeah.
We don't need to have an owner's rep, but it's a really good idea to have an owner's rep.
Yeah.
And they can be out there, they're sitting, Mark sits in every construction meeting, there's a weekly, I think every Tuesday, where they sit down and talk about what they're going to be working on the week, touring the facilities, doing the distribution. So this is an expense we felt was necessary to protect our interests in the project and make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing out there. This is going to be especially important on the hotel portion. So, to answer the question, sorry. Unfortunately, no, this is our expense. We will recoup whatever we can.
For sure.
For other expenses, legal fees, as I mentioned, Crow, on our cost of issuance, and those numbers are higher than I've ever seen for a bond issuance at this point, but it is what it is. This is not our delay at this point.
Yep.
And we will recoup whatever we can, and we'll go back and look and see if there's anything that we might have missed before we do that final bond issuance.
You know, I think in the grand scheme of this significant project, this is not a major expense, and it's one that will protect our interests. And I've just been very pleased with the services that Tim and Mark have provided, particularly since my duration here on the commission. Any further questions of either Mr. Gropp or Mr. Jensen? Well, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the additional work order for the oversight on our behalf of the Wilshaw project.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the amendment to the Wilshaw Owner's Representative Scope of Services.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm glad you two guys showed up today.
We got a quorum.
Yes, we do have a quorum. Any further questions? Okay, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the Veritas work order, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Jensen, and thank you, Tim. Now we're moving to probably the most exciting aspect of our agenda and meeting. I always look forward to this every month, even though I get some insight even prior to our meetings. Our director's report. Tim?
As if I haven't talked enough at the meeting, there's more. Wait. The most important thing is just another notification. We have moved the date of our December meeting. I have told Mark he does not need to come to that one. It's an early Christmas present, so he will not be here. I'll make Tim come. No, I'm just kidding. So our meeting next month will be December 17th, like the good old days, third Monday, at 5:30 here. So December 17th. There was a new state law that was put in place. We plan on sending out via certified mail this week an invitation to all our overlapping taxing units to join us at that meeting. We will give what essentially breaks down, there's certain requirements we have to do, but an annual report in a lot of ways. What have we been working on? What's the impact? Where's our money going? You know, how much should we bring in? Most of ours is bond payment. So we'll give a report just kind of on the finances, on the projects, on the future, what we're planning, what we're looking at in 2019. And hopefully we have a few of our taxing units join us for that. But we will notify them this week that meeting is going to be on the 17th. Beyond that, kind of a off-the-wall type thing is the developers up at, I forgot to mention this, on 2500, the developers are looking for what we'd like to name that development. For whatever reason, they didn't really like the Gateway District, so I don't have any really good ideas. So if anyone would like to email me some creative ideas, or if the SRC or anybody has any creative ideas for what we'd like to see that named, they'd like to put a name to it for marketing reasons, and just looking for some suggestions. So feel free to email me or Tim, Ramian, not Jensen. He won't appreciate that. Just let us know. We have renewed our snow removal contract. We do own several parking lots and have to keep those plowed, so we renewed that earlier. And we have received our early TIF projections as well. We're analyzing that for the meeting on the December 17th, but everything looks really good. They had done, it was the West Side's turn last year to have an actual physical reassessment, so everything seemed to be trending up. Things look good in Speedway, and the TIFs look pretty healthy right now.
Yeah, that's positive. Yep. Any other information, anything to report?
I think that's plenty.
Good. Anybody have any questions of Tim?
Update on Gilman?
Yeah,
MOU?
great question. Things are progressing fine on Gilman, so we actually have a meeting this Thursday at 1 o'clock with their architect, which is Blackline, and they're sitting down with the preliminary site plans. So we have our team assembled, so we'll have somebody from water, storm sewer, streets, and then Wendell will be in that meeting as well. And it'll be our first chance to kind of see what they're thinking on site layout for there. We can kind of do a preliminary, you're going to have a problem here, problem there, you're going to need a curb cut here, you may need a variance for this, this, and this. So we're excited to see what that looks like. But How that'll kind of progress is they're hoping to get it kind of finalized here early winter to go through the Indianapolis approval process so they can be doing construction in the spring.
Go in the spring. That's great. Anybody else have any questions of Tim? Well, before we adjourn, does anybody have any announcements?
I have a couple of annual events that are coming up here in Speedway. This Thursday at Delora is the annual Speedway silent auction. It's from 5:30 to 7:30. It's free to the public, must be over 21. It's a great event to go to, and if you want to look online to bid, if you don't go, there's also bidding online for the different things, and just go to the Speedway Chamber Facebook page to get the link for that. And then next week is Light the Night on Main Street, and that's from 6 to 8 next Wednesday.
Great.
Also like to mention that the lights at the Brickyard are up and running, and good reason for people from out of Speedway or in Speedway to come and see the track in the wintertime.
One other I forgot to mention too, it's exciting, it's being led more from our town manager side, but the town recently acquired the PNC
Correct.
Bank Building at the corner of Crawfordsville and Lyndhurst. We have an RFP out for architects right now, and there's a steering committee that will be working over the next X amount of months to turn that into a new town hall for the residents here. And we're hoping to have community space in there, a new police station, town administration, council chambers. Your meetings will be much closer. And we're really excited about it. It probably won't be open until let's see, what year is it?
2020?
2020,
That's what you're
sometime in
thinking.
2020, but we're really excited about it. I think it's going to be a nice move for the town.
Yeah, I think, Austin, you just acquired a very nice, safe, and secure home to move into. Just be patient. There'll be some work done. I'd like to congratulate a good friend of mine and a former classmate, Denny Pelly, whose son, Justin, is the head coach at Western Boone, and they just won the 2A Indiana High School football championship. I mean, quite an accomplishment, and I'm just really pleased for Denny and his family. I mean, they're just a great family, great friend, and I couldn't be any more happy for Denny. I mean, he certainly is well-deserving, even though he was just a part-time defensive coach, but he can certainly enjoy in that championship along with his son. And also, please support our businesses and all of our industries here in Speedway, particularly with the holiday season coming up. Can't see any reason to go to the downtown mall or any other retail shopping facility because our Supercenter has quite a bit to offer, as well as food and beverage along Main Street. So, Tim, do your shopping here in Speedway before you go back home.
Sounds good.
So, anything else? Dr. Reed, did you have any comments?
Nope.
Yep, great. I always appreciate having you here. So, if there's no further announcements or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion has been accepted and passed, 3-0. We're adjourned.